This video I'd like to discuss some of the things that I find interesting in Milton's first book of Paradise Lost. Just a quick warning that the thought process in this video may be a little disjointed. There's really no particular order. I've got a list that I'm kind of working from, but I'll probably think of stuff that I want to throw in, but it'll all be from the first book. The first thing I want to mention though is Milton starts with something that would be seen in the epic tradition. Keep in mind that Milton here is writing an epic poem, so he's definitely bound in many ways to a tradition that he shows great knowledge of. But not only does he invoke these same characteristics that would be expected when anybody writes an epic poem, he also takes them in new, unique directions. So he is very much a traditional poet with the epic form, but he also takes this into some very unique new waters, and I think he does a very effective job of it. The beginning though, we have something called the Invocation of the Muse, and this is basically Milton's way of doing a couple things. First of all, it's one of those epic conventions that the reader would expect. So it shows his knowledge of the convention itself, of epic poems. Also, this kind of gives him an out as an author, because using the Invocation of the Muse, it becomes more than just the author's thoughts. The author's able here to say, hey, look, I would like to be a voice piece for someone greater than myself. So here, the appeal that Milton makes, it kind of gives the definite weighty material that he's dealing with in the very, very controversial subject matter. Definitely, I think at the time period, a lot of what he writes here and how he writes it, especially Satan, the characteristic portrayal of Satan, may be disturbing to society, but the author here has a little bit of safety by saying, look, this is more than just my voice. He's appealing to a higher power to guide his words, to give his words voice. Okay. Let's talk about Satan. So right away, we find out that the motives of Satan are pretty simple to understand, even for us: envy and revenge. This is what motivates Satan to do what he wants to do. He is envious of God's power. He's also, we find out later on, envious of humanity's position, and he also wants revenge for his fall, his failure to overthrow the throne of God. Throughout the poem, throughout the first book, there are several indications that let the reader know that the hellfire that's surrounding Satan and all of his fallen angels, that this hellfire is an eternal torment. We know that these angels cannot be killed. Well, we'll come back to that. That's death. Actually, we find death in book 2, but death does have the power to kill anyone but God. But basically, this hellfire doesn't have the power to kill these beings necessarily, but it's important for us to understand that they still feel pain, and that this is torment in a couple ways. Torment, first of all, physical torment, and second of all, it's a torment because it's absence from heaven, absence from God. They may speak like they're glad God's not there, they're glad they're away from God, but you've probably heard the expression that true hell is the absence of God. They definitely do feel despair in their surroundings, as far as that they're, the pain of the fire that they feel, but also the despair of we have fallen from paradise. They're aware of that. The fall, we come into this in the middle of things, and later on in the Paradise Lost, which is, each of the books is kind of its own separate story that they all fit together, but there's 2 books that deal with the actual war in heaven. That's really interesting to read about. I think Milton does an excellent job in writing about this war, but we come into the middle of the situation. The war's already been fought and Satan's already lost it. But keep in mind that he was cast from heaven, and a third of the angelic host was cast out as well. And they fell for 9 days, I think, according to Milton. When they finally do reach hell, they lay stunned for a very long time. And I think it's important that Satan is the first one that stirs from the stupor